singing all around you. Good and loving gone bad. Oh hey, welcome to $5 Gaming.
I love the 80s. As much as people love to hate it for some of the absolute crap that came out of the decade, number one, it's not like things are any better now. And two, there were some truly great songs from truly great artists that came from that time. I may be a bit biased since I was born in the 80s, but goddammit, the 80s rocked.
So when I first heard about Guitar Hero Encore Rocks the 80s, I jumped on it immediately. How can I not? I mean, the track list includes...
Stop!
Who the hell said that?
It was I, that ominous voice from the Gauntlet games.
Okay, so why are you here?
To stop your review. You did not purchase that game for $5 or less. Therefore, it can't be used on this show.
Oh, come on, man. I actually like this game.
Rules are rules, young one.
Fine. But can you do me a favor, though?
What?
Could you say Green Valkyrie has gained a level?
Green Valkyrie has gained a level.
Thanks. So, what am I reviewing?
You shall review War Gods.
I'm reviewing what?
Look under your guitar.
The hell? How'd you do that?
I'll tell you if you say why you always played as the Green Valkyrie.
I'll just play the game. Thanks.
Remember Mortal Kombat? Actually, here's a better question. Remember all the games that spawned from Mortal Kombat? Almost as soon as the game hit arcades, ripping off Mortal Kombat became something of an art form to game developers. Now the question is, about 4 years after the first Mortal Kombat hit arcades, what about War Gods, another midway fighting game which hit home consoles about a year before Mortal Kombat 4?
And because Midway also made Mortal Kombat, technically War Gods is not a ripoff. Lazy design maybe, but not a ripoff. Honestly, I went into this game with a certain degree of hope. I mean, why shouldn't I after paying $2 for a console game? Don't answer that! Then again, I thought it might have been a real-time strategy game based on the name and the completely nondescript cover art.
Speaking of which, the art for this game was done in part by Jack Hager. Why am I mentioning this guy in particular? Because he also helped with the art and/or graphical design for other arcade titles like Terminator 2 Judgment Day, Smash TV, Narc, Sinistar, freaking Sinistar, and one of my all-time favorite arcade games, Carnival. Not that I was expecting to shoot mines and murderous clown midgets in War Gods, but it would have helped. Now you're probably wondering, why did I spend this much time going on about the art?
So I can mention Carnival. I like shooting clowns.
Oh look, it's the game I'm supposed to be playing right now. War Gods was Midway's first attempt at a 3D fighting game, and, dear God, it shows.
No pun intended.
The game was, in part, a way to test out how people reacted to their new 3D game engine, which featured combat in 3 dimensions as opposed to the traditional 2D style of fighting, and would go on to be used in Mortal Kombat 4. How did their test go? Well, here's a hint. Mortal Kombat 4, while 3D graphically, had 2D fighting.
Oh, so people can tell from that alone it's not worth it. Well, my job is done.
Sit back down.
Ah, damn it. I don't even know where to start with this one. Let's just go over the story first.
Remember the fighting game stereotype that story takes a back seat to, you know, everything? Well, if this were prison, then War Gods would be calling that stereotype Daddy and making him sandwiches.
Actually, let's play a little game of our own. Here is the title of the game. Now, let's go over the story.
As far as I can tell, an alien ship carrying a mineral called the Ore crash-landed on Earth billions of years ago. This ore has special life-giving properties to it which transforms whoever finds it into a powerful immortal being. And no, there aren't any immortal dinosaurs or Cro-Magnons for whatever reason, and it's never explained how the ore shards get scattered across the planet.
In other words, the fighters are mortals who came in contact with the ore and somehow gained superpowers from it, even though it's just an ore that's supposed to make people live longer. Except for one who is a statue and another who is a goddamn cyborg. So there are no gods in War Gods.
And no, I'm not counting Anubis. He's actually the cursed soul of a tomb raider who was caught trying to rob a burial chamber and got his body destroyed by the ore. How that works, I don't know.
Yes, the ore has incredible, life-giving properties unless it kills you!
And here's something I could never figure out. When does this game take place? There's a living statue that's thousands of years old, a cyborg from the year 2096, a modern US soldier. My only guess is either the cyborg travels back in time, or the game takes place sometime in the future, perhaps all the way in the year 3000.
In the year 3000!
So with everyone finding a piece of the ore, now the immortals all want to kill each other so that one of them can have all the ore and become the ultimate warrior or some crap like that. Which doesn't make sense because the ore was just said to have life-giving properties, not that it gave people superpowers.
That still really bothers me. I mean, in a game called War Gods, how do you not have a god of war? Not only that, but the plot is basically these 10 mortals one day just walking around and then suddenly going,
I got a rock.
and then two of these fighters find each other and one of them is like,
Give me my stone!
and then the other fighter says,
I don't have your stone, and fuck you anyway.
and yet I can still think of worse plots for a fighting game.
Now I've said several times that I don't give a shit about a game's graphics, but that doesn't mean I don't care about how a game looks. Does that make sense? Well, what I'm trying to say is the character designs for War Gods are, in a word, ungodly. It's not necessarily that they're ugly and their movements tend to look stiff and unrealistic in spite of being done with motion capture, but that there's not much to make them stand out from other fighters, especially when you give them stock names like Voodoo, Pagan, and Sci-5. That, and I swear Warhead is the bastard child of Johnny Cage and Duke Nukem. As for Kabuki Joe, I really don't know. To me, he's the Japanese Pennywise.
Ah, crap. I actually have to play the game now, don't I?
You've stalled long enough, young one.
I'm not young. Well, relatively speaking.
Before I started playing, I immediately went to the controls section and stumbled upon the game's first problem. The default settings don't include all the button commands. The roll left and roll right commands have to be assigned manually. And why are there a block and a 3D button wedged between the punch and kick buttons when they're already assigned to L and R? It wasn't very long before I changed the control scheme because I kept blocking or sidestepping every time I wanted to do a kick. Having to do this every time the game is turned on doesn't help matters either.
You know, Midway, there's this thing for the N64. It's called a controller pack. Saves game data, player preferences, control options. No? Alright.
Even with the new control scheme, the AI was slapping me all over the arena for two reasons in particular. For one, the controls are, how should I put this, quicksand-like. This despite the controls basically being the same as Mortal Kombat. Uppercuts, roundhouse kicks, leg sweeps, running, they're all the same. Still, pulling off special moves feels like wading through a swamp. I often found myself inputting moves 2 or 3 times because it simply wouldn't register. Of course, it didn't help that some moves were made unnecessarily complicated, like how attacking while getting up is forward plus high and low punch. Adding to this problem is the 3D movement. The characters can jump and move in 3 dimensions, but the camera doesn't pan fast enough to keep up with them, if it pans at all. That means not only being unable to see yourself or the other fighters at times, but not being able to properly perform a special move because the directions keep changing. That's assuming the special moves even hit their targets, though. Honestly, explain to me how the hell none of these projectiles are hitting him. Neither of us are moving! What, does possessing the orb randomly turn on no clipping mode? The major reason I couldn't get anywhere, though, was the computer's AI. I never figured out how the difficulty for this game worked. Playing on normal, the computer constantly pulls off 10 or 12 hit combos that drain about a third of the player's life at a time and spams both teleport and trap moves. Considering it's how half the characters in the game can teleport, and almost all of them have trap moves, that means a near constant barrage of combos and special moves. For this fight, Pagan used a trap 3 times and teleported 8 times. Here she only used a trap once, but teleported 12 times. Ahau Kin only did it 3 or 4 times, but that's because he did so many combos and moves that I ran out of health before he could do more than that. Anubis, however, was by far the worst because his teleport doubles as an attack. You might do one of 2 things to combat this, the first being to jump or roll out of the way. Logically, this should work, but several of the traps that are supposed to come out of the ground somehow still hit you when you're 10 feet off the ground, with a single frame of animation no less. You might also try holding down and block at first so none of the moves do more than chip damage, but there's one small problem with that.
War Gods wasn't a complete carbon copy of Mortal Kombat in that it had a few unique moves. One of them being the shove, done by hitting Blanc twice. You see, not only is the shove completely unblockable, it causes your opponent to stagger backwards and leaves them open for another move or combo. And you'd better believe that the computer abused this as much as it abused me.
Actually, I'm convinced that War Gods has some sort of automatic handicap on it. The main reason I say that is because every time I used to continue after getting outright destroyed by an opponent, that same person would barely have the IQ points to throw a punch when I faced them again. Then whoever was next in line would put me in my place before getting gimped when I continued again. Hell, look at how I beat Ahau Kin in the second round.
You know what? Screw these guys. I think we all know who the real god in this game is. Arcade tokens!
After getting my ass handed to me over and over and over, and not being able to figure out more than 2 special moves, I finally caved in and looked up a move list. I decided to focus on a few specific characters who managed not to annoy the piss out of me. Warhead, Voodoo, Kabuki Joe, and Maximus. Though I mostly chose Maximus for the goofy sound he makes when he misses an attack. Believe it or not, I actually got worse at this game after doing that, because the move list wasn't typed out correctly. Specifically, it would say things like down back instead of quarter circle back, or back down forward instead of half circle forward.
Fix your damn move list!
Before I throw you down on the ground and rape you!
What was that?